Good morning all of you. Welcome to our live program of CIT and CRT. I am Sabila Rashid and today our topic of discussion is problems in teaching political science. We have Professor Shankar Sharan with us, who is Professor of Political Science in Department of Education and Social Sciences, NCERT. We welcome to our show, sir. Today our topic of discussion is problems in teaching political science. What are the problems that the teacher face while teaching political science?
First of all, political science is by its nature a tricky subject. All kind of words, terms, phrases used in this subject are hotly discussed among the people. You see the media. Every day there are some kind of political discussion going on. And the same term people use with very different meanings. Say law, justice, rights, discrimination, constitutionality. Every speaker, every person uses the same term but with a very different meaning, sometimes even contradictory. So this is the thing to keep in mind while teaching to students, school students. They don't have any experience, they don't have any background. So whenever you speak all these terms or phrases or institutions or political parties, all kind of things, issues, then you see that the clarity of thoughts should be there. And a teacher is good when he gives a very standard meaning. Standard means that can be verified with facts, that can be substantiated with examples, that can be explained in various ways. Whenever a layman, a village person, your neighbor or anybody, if asks you a question, you should be able to explain it with concrete examples and standard meanings. So I think the first thing a teacher should keep in mind to explain any new term, any new phrase, any new situation with the clearest possible and standard meaning. Because if you don't do that, then the possibility is that the students from the very beginning will go to a kind of confused thinking. So that should be avoided at all cost. That is, I think, the first thing to be kept in mind.
Right. And what are the things that the teacher should keep in mind while teaching political science? Like, what are the main precautions?
I think, you see, as I was saying, that the clarity of thoughts of any term, any situation, if you are explaining, you should be able to explain it in such clearest terms that a student can himself or herself be able to explain it to someone else. It should not be a kind of fixed meaning or rote learning or a given paragraph or a given phrase taken from textbook or taken from constitution or taken from some help book. It should not be like that, that he should or she should just write or speak a given phrase, and when someone asks that how do you explain that, then he or she should become silent. So the first most important thing is the clarity of thoughts. So the clear thinking, or what I should say, the opposite of confused thinking is clear thinking. So clear thinking's most should I say, the test is that if you ask someone to explain something, then he should be able to explain it from everywhere, every which angle. For instance, someone says that some country or some party or some government decision, someone says that it is a progressive thing, it is a good thing. Then when someone asks a contradictory question, that okay, you are saying that this is a progressive step or progressive institution, how come that such and such did this a thing, something which is contradictory? Then if you are not able to explain it, that means that you are not very clear about it. Sometimes you see that people, for instance, this TV debate on political issues, you will see that the person is speaking something, but when asked from the opposite side to clarify it or put a example, then he becomes silent or start talking something else in a different direction or accusing someone. That means the person is not prepared to explain his point as confidently as he should have been. I think this is one of the example of confused thinking. So teacher should be very careful about this, that his students or her students are able to understand a term in its entirety. For instance, you explain something in class, then you give them to write a small essay or a small explanation with examples, and then teacher can discuss it in the class. For instance, democracy or rights or violation. So something, if you want to explain something, a term or a phrase or a new concept, then try to discuss it from the opposite angle. Then suppose you say this is democracy. You can ask a student to explain or write or think about what is not a democracy. So this way your student will be able to understand a concept in its entirety from every angle. So what is not a democracy? For instance, you say India is a democracy, United States is democracy. You should explain that what is not a democracy. Give an example of non-democratic systems. What is the features of non-democratic systems or non-democratic activities of a government, of a party, of a political system. That would give an indirect understanding what democracy is. So what is democracy? This. What is not a democracy? This. So by talking and thinking this way, a concept or a situation is better cleared to a student. And I think at the school stage, at the beginning stage, that should be a very important thing to do. That you should orient student towards a clear thinking and not confused thinking. So I think in the school it is the most important thing.
So, right, there should be a clarity of thoughts and there shouldn't be any confused thinking that you have already explained, that the teacher should give a clear understanding of a particular subject while he or she is teaching concept of political science. Here one question is, like, many a times it is accused that a particular political person or a political party is mentioned in a textbook. How do you see it? What is your opinion about it?
Yeah, this kind of suggestions or complaints we keep receiving, that you have in the particular textbook you have mentioned particular party or particular event, but you have not mentioned the other event after that. So maybe it is partial to a particular party or partial to a particular leader, or unfair to another party or another leader. I think the best way is to give examples, imaginary examples. It is better to use imaginary names or imaginary parties. For instance, when you teach mathematics, you don't say 36 or 37, you say X, Y, Z, A, B, C, A plus B, A square plus B square is equal to this and this. So A could denote any term. I think the best way is to use examples, non-living examples, because that is the standard practice all over the world also, that there is essentially no need to give concrete examples, especially those who are living and active, party, leader. So because what is our goal? We want a student to understand the concepts, understand the process, understand the entire political setup of our country or another country, or even in our country the different situation at the lower level, local level, then state level, then center level. So all these can be explained even without giving real examples. So, but that is one way to do justice with that, because whenever you use, as I said in the beginning, that this is a arena, political science is arena which is being discussed by each and every person whenever. And you cannot say, look, you are not qualified to discuss all these things. For instance, physics or chemistry, only qualified persons talk about it. But that is not in political science. Anybody, any voter, any person at the dhaba or at the
Tea stall is
adda, or
discussing
anywhere
about
in
it.
office, even in home, drawing room, there are heated discussions on everything. So you cannot tell people not to discuss it. So likewise, everybody has liking and disliking. Everybody has some his or her own opinion about a certain party, certain leader. So you cannot actually give examples which can satisfy everybody. So one thing is that you justify these things, but the best way is that you don't take names. You can explain anything by giving, suppose a party does this, instead of saying that this party did this, because as soon as you take the real name, then somebody will be for and somebody will be against. Why you are using this party in this context? Why don't you use that party in this context? For a positive example, they will say that you are making a positive impression for a particular party, or you are giving a negative impression about a particular leader. So these can be avoided, one, by not giving the real names, and you can explain any topic, any issue without taking real names. You can say, suppose a party does this, suppose a leader did this, or even if you are giving a real example, you can give the real example without taking names. So that, and it also helps in having a balanced view, because as soon as you take the real name, then related questions come to deviate the issue. Your concern is to explain democratic process or non-democratic situations or a constitutional provision or a political event or a political problem or a social problem. So if you don't take names, then it is you have more chances to have a balanced discussion than to talk the real issues or problems or genuine grievances, genuine inhibitions, genuine fear. So you can address all that without taking names. But even if sometimes if it is compulsory, or suppose it is in the book itself, or the person is asking direct question about an event, about a party, about a leader, about a law, or about a changing of law, for or a reform in the law, then I think the next best is to give every side of the situation, not giving just one side's explanation. A teacher should do better to give every side of the issue. What is in the for, what is in the against, how many quarters are supporting this situation, how many quarters are opposing this situation. So whether you like it or not, or even if something is absurd, but if the question raised is from a valid or an important segment, howsoever stupid it looks to you, you should mention it first. And then you try to explain the pros and cons of every situation, so that people, I mean your student, they should be able to discuss all the issues, all the perspectives with equal calm as they discussed issue of mathematics, issue of chemistry. There is no emotion there. So I think the best success for a teacher would be to give this habit to students to discuss political issues as calmly as you discuss the issues of chemistry. So, and for that it is very necessary, it is almost essential that you give all kind of opinion available to your desk, available to your thing, that look, all these are the issues. Now you yourself apply your mind and try to find out what is the lacuna or what is the strength of an argument or a complaint, and then you will find that, look, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in favor of something. There are 1, 2, 3 arguments or facts which is against this proposition. So in this way, a comparative way, I think this is the third point I would like to stress, that there are no complete and final answers. And that is a very important and delicate thing to understand for teacher as well as students, that you don't have black and white and fixed answers like you have in chemistry, that the quality of sulfur is this, right, and you cannot neither add nor subtract. But in political subjects, political issues, political events, present or past, or even in speculations, there cannot be final answers. Howsoever exhaustive you have made a discussion, but there is still might come another point by some intelligent person or some very naive person. So one should be able to take everything very calmly and coolly and discuss it, despite your liking and disliking. So I think this is one way, I mean more than one way to address this issue, that this kind of allegations or complaints or hurt should be minimized. I'm sure that it cannot be done away with entirely. In any political text or any paragraph or any essay, any article, any textbook, I don't think that it will satisfy everybody. But it can be so standardized that the scope of complaint or partiality or this kind of expectations, this is also an issue. That if you put, and this happens very frequently, we see in our correspondence and complaints, that since you have created a precedent, then everybody will say, please add this, please add that. And if you accommodate all of them, your textbook will become a 500-page book.
Right.
So for all these reasons, I think we should devise certain ways to minimize this kind of expectations and complaints and all these things. And so whatever should be done in this regard.
Right. Professor Sharan, here one question arises, as you have mentioned that particular names should not be given, as we use in mathematics ABC or XYZ we generally use, and the more focus should be given on explaining the concept. But when we talk about political science and when we talk about higher secondary level, don't you think, in your opinion, do you think that it's high time that the students should start discussing the real problems and relating it to the real world? If we just focus on the concept and then leave it to the students to apply those concepts in the real world on their own, don't you think so there would be some problem in the understanding of the students?
That is a very good question, I think, difficult question. Yes, real world it is, we live in real world and students also live in real world, and every day they face situations and go through newspapers or watch TV, so many events are reported and issues. So yes, real events are there, but that is the issue, that how they discuss it, how they approach it. Are they approaching it with the help of just liking and disliking, just emotions, or just a group thing, as a sectarian thing? I'm sorry. So the best thing would be to help them approach this with all-sidedness. As I mentioned, all-sided means that all kind of observations. I think one of the good example one of my teachers suggested is that suppose you are talking of a very recent event. You can give your students a task that you find different newspapers and go through the same news or same issue and make a point what this explanation or article or editorial or even the news report says. Make a point, and then you compare all the points in different newspapers. There are 10 newspapers.
They'll have different opinions.
Different opinions, different points. Even in reporting itself, you will find that certain thing is missing in another report.
Right.
In a third report, you will see something else, and all these make a kind of a panorama of situation, and all the students can discuss it. That X newspaper has given this kind of detail, Y newspaper has given this kind of detail, Z newspaper had reported something new. So how you approach it?
So we leave it to the students to make a whole balanced report out of it.
No, I think the students should be encouraged to think in the manner, the all-sidedness,
Right.
that an event happened. There are so many versions of it.
Right.
So try to find out which one is the indubitable. Something happened, something is occurring in all the newspapers or all the reports analysis, that means that much is a fact. Then you see that there are certain element for which there is no ground. So it might be a speculation or just a hunch. It might be an honest hunch, but still it is a hunch. So students should be encouraged to make the difference between hard fact, verifiable thing, and just a speculation or just a judgment by the onlooker. Sometimes you make a judgment on the basis of your earlier experience, but maybe it is correct this time or maybe it is not. So this all-sidedness of a concept or an event or a situation or something happening, so I think this should be encouraged, that don't go for a quick conclusion and don't go for a final conclusion. Something is there, you started to learn of an event or a problem or an issue, start collecting all kind of facts and make it a logbook. And as many facts, as many points, as many arguments, as many narrations you collect and then apply your mind. Perhaps that will prepare yourself to make a reasoned judgment or reasoned conclusion, or maybe a tentative conclusion. But it will be based on facts, sound arguments, constitutionality, and a general, what you say, a truthful observation. Because as I told you that there is not a final answer to all these political problems. So coming to your question that how to tackle it, I think the best thing is that try to encourage in them to first find out all kind of observations and then try to reason out themselves, and don't give them your conclusion. A teacher must be, since he is a citizen and he is also a affected person by right and wrong of our society, so he or she must be having her own or his own conclusion, but don't give it directly.
So here you have brought up a very interesting point, that even a teacher is a citizen of this country and he has his own biases. So how should he or she deal with it while he is teaching a particular political issue? He has his own set of thinking. And do you think that gets reflected while he is explaining a particular topic to the classroom?
I think, as I said, that first of all, don't be impatient to give your conclusion. Something happened, don't you start condemning it or don't you start praising it. First you try to inculcate in the students an attitude of curiosity to learn more and more, find out more and more, and then start give, for instance, in our country the foremost political document is the Constitution. Take any problem. So first give the constitutional situation. What our Constitution says about this, what laws says about this, what have been its historical development, and what was situation 100 years ago, for instance in the British time, what is now after the independence, what we have achieved or what we had made of this law, whether we have continued with the same law, whether we have created any new law
or modified
it. So all these facts should come first. And then try to relate the incident or situation with those provisions of law or constitutionality. And then data, real data. Something reprehensible, something bad happens. For instance, this kind of examples of take caste fight or caste discrimination. Now this kind of allegations, reproach and the answering and questioning, that goes on. Recently it is going on, you know all that. So constitutional provision, its historical development, and then the hard data. How many such incidents are happening, in under what population, in what area, what was situations earlier, is it going bad, is it worse than earlier, or is it better than earlier? So all these cannot be discussed outright on the basis of emotions. You have to have hard data about that. So this data and the constitutional provision and the historical development, if you put everything in perspective, then it will be easier to come to a reasonable conclusion on the circumstances.
So right, it is the responsibility of teacher to be as objective as he or she can be.
Well, that is expected of the teacher. So he should not enforce his own judgment or his opinion upon the students, because the students are not in a position to judge you or judge a situation, and they trust you. So in that situation, if you teach them directly to take sides without knowing the entire gamut of situation. As I said, the constitutional provision, legal provision, historical development, and the real data.
Right.
Not only our own country, but comparing to other countries also, other societies also, because no society is without this kind of bickering or discrimination or some kind of favoritism, some type of injustices. So what is our situation vis-a-vis other society? What is our situation today vis-a-vis what was earlier? So all these comparison will help a student to come to a reasoned judgment.
Right.
And it will make a positive attitude in him. Positive in the sense that we neither should praise our country, our society without any proportion, nor condemn it without losing all sense of proportion.
Right.
So we have our positives, we have our negatives, and our students should be able to coolly discuss all these things with on the solid basis of constitution, law, historical development,
Right.
and the real situation of society. Because you can either make an exaggeration of positive side, or you can make an exaggeration of negative
negative
side.
side.
Students should be discouraged to go by this kind of things,
Right.
and they should be advised that wait, you can have your opinion. There is a whole life. First, you learn the basics and try to make your own reasoned judgment so that you can justify your situation in a cogent manner,
Right.
in a systematic manner.
Right. Professor Sharan, we do not have much time left. So the last question that I would like to ask you while we are discussing the topic problems in teaching political science, there's a main issue while teachers is teaching serious subjects, topics like communalism or reservation or religionism, something related to religion and everything. How should a teacher address these issues to the classroom, introduce the student to these topics?
I think the first thing I should say, as I was saying, that a student should be advised to become an impartial judge, even though he is a party. A student might belong to a certain community, certain caste, certain religion, region, language, country, even country. We are Indian, we are American. So all these patriotism thing or community feeling or language feeling, it is everything there. But try to make him an impartial judge first. That first you see the pros and cons of every situation and pros and cons of every argument for this problem of communalism or regionalism or language imposition or whatever issues come. So I think as I was expressing earlier, that he should be in a situation to appreciate all the points, what the other side wants to convey, and you try to understand from his or her point of view, and then make a whole board. Try to decide for yourself what is the most sound judgment to you and how you are able to reason it out. Not in one point, one sentence judgment, but you should be able to write an essay, maybe one paragraph, maybe one page, maybe 2-3 pages. But if you have consistency with your arguments and facts, that means you have taught the student to think for himself or herself, because that is how he or she will be able to contribute to his knowledge, and he or she would be able to help others to this knowledge.
Right. So anything that we have missed during our discussion you would like to conclude in a couple of 2 lines?
I think one thing is that the entire understanding of social sciences, especially, it is not just for examinations. It is to help you understand better as a social unit or social animal or a citizen.
Right.
So try to have a habit of study, self-study,
Right.
good books, better books, best books, and that will help your ability to analyze and reason. So this self-study, not only of the course book, not only for the examination, but to acquire knowledge, good
Right.
books, great books, classic books. So even a small bit of this reading habit will help a lot in understanding social science.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Shankar Sharan, for being with us on our show and enriching our viewers with your points, like how should political science should be taught in classroom. Hope you would have noted down few of our points and would like to implement those points in your classroom. And this is especially for the teachers who are watching this show. Tomorrow we'll come up with another topic with another expert. Thank you so much for being with us. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.